If I revealed the chat, there is so much spice from you and Gramajo in there. Hey Joanna.
Hey, hey, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Let me
Revealed the
switch
chat.
over.
Yeah, if I
Dang. Good
revealed the chat,
morning.
there is so much there. But on air, you guys act like these perfect angels with no spice, and you
Whoa,
make
whoa,
me
whoa.
dish all the spicy takes.
Trust me. No one thinks I'm a perfect angel. You've seen the commentary I've gotten. It live in chat. So yeah, let's not pretend like we're also you know, angels here. We're not. I just think it was funny that you basically said last week, I'm not gonna be spicy, you know, and
I
when I read
wasn't,
the
was I?
newsletter, no, when I
Oh
read the newsletter, I was
God.
like, this is probably the spiciest you've ever been.
Are you serious?
Did you not read? You don't read the
Mm.
newsletter. Oh Lord.
Hmm. I do read it. No, I do read it, but it's like for me, it's like it's it's like weird to see. This is why I also don't like going on other people's podcasts because I feel like I never have anything interesting to say because everything I'm gonna say is like I already know. So to me, it's not interesting because I've already heard those thoughts from myself. You know what I mean?
It's like you're
And so it's hard.
hearing out loud what you've said a million times in your head.
Right, right. So I'm like, yeah, that's like obviously like I already thought that before. That's like not interesting.
Well, you're very interesting and you're very spicy, regardless of whether you think you're being spicy or not. I think that's just your natural state.
Great, great.
Joanna's like, "Well, okay,
No,
GM,
no,
Welcome,
no.
what can
I
you do?
Joanna.
agree with everything you said.
Joanna, I
Um,
hope you're bringing the spice because I have an AI agent
yeah.
that is constantly listening, and they will be almost automatically creating a newsletter from this.
Oh my. Wow.
And there's a temperature check. You know what? I think that would be fun. At the bottom of it, there'll be a temperature check to see how many chilies each one of the people who has been on the pod is. I would say I'm
Oh my
if
God.
there's like 5 chilies, right? I would say I'm between 3 and 4. I would say 4. You might disagree, Diana. You're definitely a 5. You're a
What?
5 chili take because again, you're not. It's not mean. You're just like honest, and I think honesty can be spicy sometimes. And then
I
Gramajo is like a
say the hard
-2.
truth. Except when, okay, this is the thing with Gramajo is like he'll attack at the least expected moments. Like I feel like people
Mm,
know what they're getting with me. Gramajo is like -2 spice
yeah.
until it's like suddenly a 5,
Oh man.
Ooh.
you know?
To be fair, I prefer to know what I'm getting into. And Diana, with you in the beginning, because didn't really have that relationship with you. I knew of you, I've seen you, I've talked to you, but never really had a relationship with you. Like, I didn't know how spicy you could naturally be. So I was like, wandering into this like pod, like, yay, Diana, super sweet and kind and well, you are, but
What?
again, never mind. I'm gonna stop right there.
Wow.
By the
Wow.
way,
But no, this is why I don't really live stream and this is why I just keep it to edited
mm,
podcasts because then I can keep it
Right.
professional and keep my lips sealed a little bit more. But you put me on a stream where you're like, oh yeah, it's just casual and chill. Just be yourself. There's no format. And I'm like, oh well,
yeah, Joanna,
now
we
you're gonna
just
see
want
the
you to
real
be
me.
casual today. Don't worry about any outlines or questions,
Yeah.
because
I literally did not
we
read,
want
by
the
the way.
spice. We want
After
the
last
spice.
night. Yeah, I did not
Yeah.
read.
Yeah. Yeah, I realize you're way ahead of me time zone wise, and so I'm making my comments like, yeah, let's go through all this. And you're like, I am in bed. I'm sleeping, bro. Anyways, we're waiting for our co-conspirator here, which is Gramajo. But in the meantime, just wanted to GM everybody who's joining us. We are live on X. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Farcaster. There's a stream that
Hell
I
yeah.
just casted. So, we're going to be talking, as we usually do, about what's happening in the creator economy. But we also have Joanna today from Soon. I almost said Zune. Um, and we're going to be kind of debating, maybe,
Hmm.
the cultural differences between base. You know, I might have worn my base hat, so we all know where I stand. And Solana, we have our Solana defender, which is Gramajo. He said he was going to be repping Solana. I got to be honest, I am not. If there was like an expert level, just like we have a chili level here for spices, with Solana, I would say I'm probably at a 1 out of 5. I've dabbled it with it just because everyone else is playing with it, but I really don't know much about
Mm.
what's happening over there. I do know of some creator platforms, which I think Gamako has already kind of shared with you, that are being built over there, which I think would be really interesting to see how that could be ported over. Maybe that's the wrong word to base, but more importantly, how the cultural differences that we're going to talk about would influence them on base, where maybe it's just not possible on Solana.
Yeah.
So why don't you give us an intro, Joanna?
Yeah.
Because I think you and I met along with Gramajo at Farcon. Diana had. I don't think she was there to have met
Where
you.
was
So
I?
I don't know.
No, I
This
don't
was
think we met before Joanna.
Not yet. No.
this was at the Bright Moments event, the official
Uh,
closing party where you had to pay for your own drinks.
oh, really?
I
Yikes.
didn't realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, neither did I.
Oof. That's rough.
until I said, "Hey, I'll buy my friends
I'll
all
buy a
around."
round for all my friends.
Yeah,
Dang, I should have been there.
yeah, you should have. Yeah, it was a nice hefty bill. Anyways, Joanna, give us an intro.
Yeah, yeah. Happy to. Yeah. First of all, just really great to be here with two OGs and Gramaha will join the three, all three of you, part of the early morning crew. Um, yeah, I mean, I've been in the space, kind of went through like a pretty winding journey. Um, I previous to prior to coming to crypto, I was in TriFi for over a decade, and trading, foreign exchange at Citibank, and I just remember this moment when I was being told by my um, I guess it's a researcher economist on the trading floor saying that this was back in 2012, where he was saying like, oh, this new cryptocurrency is going to replace fiat. So at the time, I just did what a good trader would do: hedge my career risk with some personal investment in Bitcoin. But sadly, I actually put it in the wrong exchange at the time, put it into the um, Mongolf, and that kind of the next year got hacked, and that pushed my whole belief in crypto much behind. And fast forward, I started thinking about crypto as a more of an investment vehicle when 2017 cycle came through, and that's when Ethereum programmability came about, and the whole idea behind crypto as more than just a P2P payment currency, but more of a smart contract capability really appealed to me. So that's when I kind of dove down into the rabbit hole and realized I need to first learn about like programming language, took a coding lesson, and that got me really into like the crypto developer community here in New York. Started this, we call it like Crypto NYC. We actually got that OG name with a bunch of fellow nerds that like to talk about white paper, and we had this like co-working space until pandemic hit, and that led me to finally my first like real job, full-time job with crypto on the institutional team at Coinbase, and then I spent about 2.5 years at Coinbase, first on the listing side, and then later I moved to the NFT marketplace launch team. So after that, um, quite interesting experiment. That team was deprioritized, and found myself in the job market. And basically, ever since then, I was only working on infra projects, which I think really I discovered as my main passion, just building ecosystem from the ground up. So at first working at Optimism, and later, now I founded Soon as a kind of OP staff for SBN, right? So this idea really was born out of this realization that we need high performance VM to really unlock these new use cases that we seeing as PMF in the Web3 space, right? Like high frequency trading, streaming, um, all kinds of you mentioned creators, right? Like definitely a lot of these Web2 like experience needs to be brought to Web3 through high performance, high TPS, low latency chains. So that's why we started this soon soon stack, right, as the um, underlying kind of like gold standard, right, to bring Solana virtual machine to ecosystem outside of Solana. So so far we have three mainnets live, right? So one SVM chain on top of ETH L1 and one on BNB chain or Binance Smart Chain. And then the last one that we just announced about a couple weeks ago, that was with Jesse. That was the base, version. So we call Soon base. That's I think when we first met, Humpty, that's kind of like the topic of the day, right? Like wanted to understood how the Farcaster or the base crowd really think about it, and that led to the whole discussion or debate about like the base versus Solana culture, and how that led to some of the product gaps that I see. Yeah, that's a little longer version, but trying to give you guys a little bit more color on how the journey has been.
Yeah. Dan, do you want to hit some questions first? I definitely got a laundry list.
God, I do too. I'm similar to Humpty. I'm maybe at like a one in terms of my knowledge of Solana. I just haven't like dabbled too much there. I feel like once a year for the last 4 years, I'll like start a new Phantom wallet because I start a wallet for to check out like a new app and then lose my keys. And then a year later, another new Solana app pops up that I really want to check out, and I go through the same process again. Now I finally, I think, have figured out how to hold on to my Phantom keys after that Pudgy drop. But other than using like Moonwalk and stuff like that, I really don't know that much about the Solana ecosystem. I obviously like just from having just from like friends and from seeing stuff on Twitter and stuff like that, like I kind of get the vibe of what the Solana ecosystem is like. But I would love to just like first of all hear from you, and I apologize if you guys already talked about this in person when you met, but like what, from your perspective, what you think some of the major differences are between
Hmm.
the Solana culture, like the culture of the whole ecosystem, if you had to generalize, versus the culture that you see, within the base ecosystem or even like the greater EVM ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think that's why I kind of started that tweet. Yeah, definitely. It was, and then saw other people kind of agree with this, right? It's like I live in New York, right? It's like the Brooklyn crypto crowd versus the Manhattan crypto crowd, right? Like the Manhattan crowd is more, like money driven, like very speculative driven. Um, like people that likes to do day trading and um, yeah, basically very much focused on the rewards part, right, of the crypto. And then the Brooklyn crowd is more kind of DAO maxis like yourself, right, artists, creators, people who care more about vibes and decentralization, right, ethos of blockchain. So I would say like yeah, very different tribalism is dividing us, right? Um, it's just kind of stood out very much to me, like when I went to these different events and meeting the different crowds and the topics that we discuss. Um, and then I think that's kind of coming from both like builder and user perspective. So where I see like a lot of blending is happening is actually on the user side. So I myself is also like everyone else, right? Like also using blockchain, right? I'm user first, builder second, I would say. So I was definitely like initially. Oh yeah, yeah. There's a Bushwick crypto, bro. Yeah, yeah. I think that's where like the Brooklyn crypto crowd really kind of came from. The East Bushwick, right? That's like where that initial core group started, and yeah, people just like to live in that region, like never cross the bridge to come to Manhattan. I think like you even made a comment, right, Humpty, when you first met me, like, oh, you dress like a like Manhattan crypto girl. I'm like, whatever that means.
Did I? That might have been after I bought the second round for people.
Yeah, maybe that's when you like had a little bit more energy. Um, yeah, I take it as
Wow.
a compliment, so thank you.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
yeah,
it's
so
a
I think
compliment, Diana. Let's check this real quick. It was a compliment.
yeah, it is a compliment.
I'm glad you took it as a compliment, Joanna.
There
Yeah,
we
yeah.
go. All right. Anyways, moving on.
Moving on. So yeah, so I think the whole like user perspective is what really got me, right? Thinking, why do we see more user adoption on Solana versus, let's just say, any Ethereum based, right? Either mainnet or L2s, even combined, right? So at that time, I mean, um, I'm sure like even today, when we're just looking at the pure like number of transactions, it's still true, right? Solana just dwarfs EVM space. And the reason for that is really very simple. It's just the user experience is better, right? So I, again, started as an ETH maxi. I was very much, working at Coinbase, working at Optimism. I came across these DEXs, right, that um, started on ETH. But then once I switched over, trying out, messing around with like the Jupiter and Drift, some of the other dexes out there, it became really clear like the user features that you get. Like on Jupiter, you have DCA, value average, right? These batch transaction processing, right? All these features that you can only get on that DEX aggregator. Um, so that just kind of completely changed my perspective on which chain to use, and and I think yeah, like similarly on like a lending protocol, it's also just a lot faster and cheaper. So I think that's why um, I thought about like if we really want to scale Ethereum, it's actually not to use VVM, it's actually using SVM, right, to truly scale
Mm.
Ethereum and bring users, right? At the end of the day, is that user adoption is what um, the holy grail, right? It's what drove us to this space. So yeah, so I think that's to answer your question, right? Like from a um, culture perspective, like we also want to not only bring the Solana builders or SVM builders to base as example here or Ethereum, but also that culture, right? Like people who likes to ship, who sort of talk less, to be quite honest, but focus on the shipping, and then people who likes to yeah basically bring in new users, retail users, like what we see in the last cycle, right? Or maybe this is still the cycle, like where we see the meme traders coming in, the what you call the prediction markets, right? Like AI agents, similar new narratives popping up on Solana. So yeah, that's what I wanted to bring to all the ecosystem.
Do you think like in the future with the next wave? Sorry, Humpty, I can see you have something to say. I'm just real quick question. Do you think with the next wave that it's people are going to be like more fluidly moving between ecosystems? 'Cause I feel like what we've seen to date is kind of like whatever ecosystem you onboard into is
Mhm.
like the ecosystem that you stay in. And I think it's like really hard, or we just haven't seen a lot of people who like onboarded through the EVM and are now like Solana maxis or
Yeah,
vice versa. Like you kind of just stick in whatever
really
ecosystem
great
you were
point.
onboarded into.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair statement, right? And a lot of this has to do with interoperability, right? We don't have today a really like mature interop solution, and something that we actually pay a lot of attention at the early days, because we don't want to kind of see similar things happen on the OP stack, right? Like they didn't really solve the interoperability until like 3 and 4 years down the line. Now they're still trying to figure it out. So for us, we actually use something called like intent solver. So it's bring that chain abstracted experience when you use one application, like the biggest DAX on our chain right now, it's called Cobalt X, right? So you can just have that kind of yeah, non-fragmented experience, right? You don't have to keep bridging in and out your liquidity on either the the base version or the Ethereum version or the BNB version. It's very much um, aggregated. It's kind of like ag layer, right? The Polygon concept, right? Like just aggregated into one dApp level.
So, kind of to piggyback off that point
Sure.
that Diana was making, I wonder if you, based on just your personal experience, because it sounds like you've kind of navigated the crypto space, through different ecosystems,
Yeah.
and in the financial space primarily, it sounds like. I wonder if you, firstly, can give us an inside look as to the Solana ecosystem and your thoughts about it being an onboarding mechanism for new people to crypto. The reason why I ask this is because, at least in my experience with my family, who I've been preaching about crypto since 2016, and they finally started joining like last year or the year before, right? They just got tired of hearing me every Christmas talk about Bitcoin and crypto and now on chain media. And they're like, oh, goodness sakes, okay, we'll buy some Bitcoin, right? Um, Most of them, at least here in the US, maybe it's different outside of the US, but for those here in the US, it feels like the onboarding mechanism is Coinbase.
Hmm.
And for those who are trying to explore crypto for the first time, Ethereum or EVM chains like Base seem to be the go to. Have you experienced where people are starting with Solana? And if so, what does that look like as an onboarding mechanism? Because I don't personally know anybody who started on Solana first.
Yeah, yeah. So I had the exact same idea coming from a US perspective. And then, when my co-founder is in Asia, right? So, when we met a few times, like before we decided to start this company, yeah, I was very surprised by like outside the US, I would say that at least like in Asia, because that's where we have a lot of developer base, right? Like it's very much the opposite, right? It's actually it's a country based, actually it's a country based bias, like based on the best application built in that country, like who is that builder, so people look up to that person. Like so for example, right, in Malaysia, everybody look up to Xiong, right, or Mao, the co-founders of Jupiter. So they see that they have achieved, you know everything they have achieved in their career, and they wanted to simulate that. So that's why the developers, new developers, are actually learning Rust as the first language. I actually saw that, like when I went to these super team events, the college kids are learning Rust as their first programming language, not Solidity. So that's a super bullish sign, right? And then um, so I would argue, right? So the onboarding experience for these developers is that, um, they first learn about like where the users are, right? And then they realize, and I think maybe just to go back, take a step back, right? Like let's discuss maybe, why like outside the user experience is better in Solana. Like why else are we seeing more users on Solana right now, right? So I think the one thing is on the application side, um, we see the last 6 months, maybe in the 9 months, the narrative on ETH is like staking and restaking, right? It's very much parking your asset here and then you don't have to worry about it. Like it's just, APY, XYZ, right? You can just earn that rewards. So it's actually encouraging people to not really spend the crypto, right? So, um, like one thing I think really moves users towards, hey, Ramal,
Hello.
Hey, Ramaho, you
really
want to mute?
moves
It's
user between
pretty loud.
chains is the fact that like they wanted to figure out where to spend their crypto, not where to park their crypto. Because the onboarding part, as you mentioned, right, it's through the exchanges, it's through the central exchanges. So it's based on like maybe to your point, like your country only supports Coinbase, right? Then yeah, that's how you're gonna get into this. That's the portal that you're gonna get through to come on chain. But then where you then spend your time on is based on where you can spend that crypto. So I think where ETH kind of lacked on the effort is figure out a way to really make it easy to to have a liquid, like what's the right word I was looking for? To have a way to efficiently use your capital, right? Increase your capital efficiency, and bring that high velocity of trading transaction, um, whatever. Like it doesn't have to be trading. It can be deepin, right? It can be any sort of a high transaction volume, low notional type of like microtransaction type of behavior. That's why I think like ETH was lacking um, in that direction. So folks decided to move their ETH to, or convert their ETH to SOL, right, and move it to Solana. So that's like the biggest um, issue I see, right? That's why we wanted to move kind of like Ethereum back to like let's try a different virtual machine and still settles onto Ethereum, so everything is value accrued to Ethereum. Um, but like let's at least avail these use cases that allow people to spend their crypto more efficiently.
I'll give you that. Um, well, I feel like right now Ethereum as a main chain, right, as mainnet is experiencing a bit of a energy crisis where it's like trying to like rally the troops to go and do something fun and exciting and say we're dancing to save Ethereum. I still don't understand that meme. I think it's a little
I don't
silly,
understand that either.
and not in the right way. But
No,
I feel like
I tweeted if I see one more Save Ethereum dance, I'm deleting this app. And I
Okay.
might
but that's the
actually do
point
that.
though. Yeah, I mean that's the point though. Like I feel like a lot of the energy or culture of Ethereum has moved upstream to L2s, and even some of those L2s, which I, with you, along with you, Joanna, like I was optimism all the way when they first launched, but I feel like even some of that has diluted out to other L2s like Base, right, who
Mhm.
have captured the attention and the imagination, probably better set of developers that can then create fun and unique experiences for everyone else to do some interesting things, not just with their money, but with their media as well. Over on Solana, though, I feel like it's like if there was like a 0 to 60, we're still accelerating on base, and Ethereum is still trying to figure out how to turn on the car. Solana, though, is like gone past the speed zone in terms of like how fast they've accelerated uh, the experiences and the velocity of money on Solana. But so I will give you that. That's a big cultural difference, and I do think that it would be interesting to see how we can integrate or blend together the two cultures with what you're building with Soon, and bringing in those some of that Solana culture and builder ethos onto Base, right, or onto Ethereum mainnet as well. I did have a question because one of the things that you talked about with us previously to hosting this is Solana grade UX. I saw UX a lot in kind of some of the things that you sent over to us prior to this call, and I wonder how you define UX in terms of Solana without necessarily talking about money. Like, what is it about Solana's UX that makes it so much more interesting that could really become like infectious or viral on
Yeah,
Base and Ethereum?
yeah. I think the biggest comparison, the analogy that I can think of is, um, like people are building TikTok versus on Solana versus like MetaMask on um, on Ethereum. Like meaning you're basically building on Solana like this Web 2 like experience, right? As opposed to like on Ethereum is like a degen first, right? Crypto native experience that like needs so much education. I think, I mean, I'm sorry, but I just used MetaMask for so long, and then now I just I have like five different um, wallets here, but not not MetaMask, for a reason. It's just it's really clunky. Like it's making you jump through hoops. Like you have to do 2 clicks versus 1 click on Solana. Like it's just yeah. There's a lot of different reasons. I think um, it worked at the time it did, right? Like because it was the first thing, and um, yeah, it was revolutionary. But like along the way, kind of lost steam of like it needs to keep up with the innovation, right? Keep up with the new onboarding needs. And when you look at like we are all here to grow the pie, like how do we onboard Web2 people? Like I wouldn't recommend them using MetaMask, for instance. Um,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
definitely don't even say that on crypto Twitter because then you'll just have a bunch of spam. I mean, I don't even know if the bots are still doing that, to be honest, because I haven't seen many people talk about MetaMask. I'll let Gramajo pop in here because I know he definitely has more experience about with Solana. But the question that I'll leave here, and then either of you can pick this up. But what is the TikTok of Solana other than Pump.fun?
that's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of teams are working on this, but um, yeah, there's a what was the team that's literally just working on a competitor pumped up fund. Um, I was literally just talking to them yesterday. I'm sorry, escaping me. But yeah, I mean, I think Pump is definitely one leading example of a fun experience to get people to come on board to like, and it's actually trading. I'm sorry to bring the money aspect into it, but it's building like a new um, way of trading these memes, right? Like in a way that has like people that first create liquidity pump into pumped up fund as like a the inner circle, right? The cabal people, and then they can like graduate and then get listed onto Metera or Jupiter or one of these dexes out there, and then that gives like a lot of uh, wealth creation in fact, right, for folks that get in early. It's like a bounding curve, right? So I think just the design of that is like really interesting. Like it was one of a kind at the time. A lot of people trying to copy it now, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the prime example. They're
Yeah,
building TikTok. Yeah.
Gramajo, what are you excited to see coming from Solana to Base aside from Pump.fun? Because that's the only thing I know. So I'm gonna say except for that because I know that.
I know
Yeah.
Moonwalk.
Yeah, that's what I said. Moonwalk too. Moonwalk would be sick. Where's the ETH
What's
version of it?
Moonrock for those of us who are even more
Moonwalk.
noobs? Moonwalk. What's Moonwalk?
Moonwalk.
It's like it like makes you it's like a competition where you go in a pool and then you commit to walking like 10,000 steps a day or whatever. It can be set to whatever it is. And you like put in, 100 soul or whatever. And if you meet your goal every day for the time period of the duration of the contest, then you don't lose any money. If you miss one of the days, then you lose your money, and then the money you lose goes into a pool that gets dispersed to the rest of the competitors.
Oh,
So
so
I
slashing, proof of
slashing
work.
for,
This sounds
yeah.
very familiar, by the way, but in a
Yep.
much more fun way. By the way, no wonder I didn't hear about it. It had to do with exercise. Anyways,
There's a lot of
It,
house apps too. Yeah, like
that's
Cutest,
cool.
cutest, yeah. It's
DP.
also like very user friendly. And
Yeah, how do you prove it? Like, do you have like a way to monitor that you're walking in the pool every day?
It's
I,
like
I,
connected to like your Apple Watch or whatever wearable device you have.
yeah,
I see.
yeah. So it
Yeah.
connects to like Apple Watch. You could do Garmin, kind of like the usual suspects.
Hmm.
Hmm. I mean,
Um,
okay, so sorry to interrupt, but I do want you to keep going on this, Grandma, because you already dropped some really good like tidbits here. But that's an interesting onboarding mechanism, right? Because we talk about consumer on base all the time, but this idea of like bringing in the health nuts or whatever they like to be called these days, people who like to exercise and eat well and track their walking habits, Diana.
Why are you
Um,
hating on healthy people right now?
yeah, because I'm not. That's why I'm hating on people who like take care of their body
Okay,
and
don't
exercise
hate us
every
because
day.
you hate us. It's a free world. You can go outside and walk your steps too.
How
No
dare
one's
you tell me
stopping
to go
you.
outside and walk? Don't tell me what to do. Anyways, Gramajo, like yeah, that's so awesome. Like I really enjoy seeing
there's
that
no
there's.
sidewalks in LA.
Yeah, good point. Maybe not East LA. Venice is pretty nice. I heard Venice Boardwalk. Have you heard of that?
Here we go. Here we go. This is where the AI agent is gonna take your tidbit. You know that, right, Diana? And it's gonna make you
No, this
sound
is what you're
extremely
cutting out.
spicy. I don't do
Best
anything.
burritos in
It
Venice.
does it all automatically. Oh, that's hilarious. All right, good. Well, keep going. Keep dropping the alpha. What else are we looking
Well,
forward to?
I was gonna say like even like it does tie back to money, but it's honestly like such a basic premise where with Solana, because it's a L1, you don't even have to explain to people what bridging is or that concept. And that's a very powerful thing because in Ethereum for a hot minute, like if you didn't know how to bridge into like one of these new L2s, it was not very easy to get your money sent to these L2s. Or there was like lockup periods, you would send your money, but you had to wait a week,
Mm.
Wouldn't
you
someone
know?
say though that you could just take your money from your preferred exchange and drop it into whatever network you wanted?
You can now. Could you do that a year ago?
I don't remember. My memory goes as
You
far
can't.
back as
You
this
couldn't.
morning.
You couldn't. I can tell you that.
I don't remember
You,
meeting Joanna, so my memory is really really bad.
no, so I remember when Base came out, I tried doing the DK mint, and DK is like a really big, like famous ETH
Artist.
artist.
Yeah.
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 And I could tell you as someone that's like was deep in Ethereum back then, like figuring out how to get money into Base back then was not intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a
Yeah.
benefit to that because when you're onboarding a bunch of people into Solana, you don't even have to explain any of this. It's the same on ramps, Obviously now it's like very easy to get into Base. Like you could just send money via Base, like from Coinbase. Like it's all very straightforward, but like little things like that, I feel like are very helpful. Is like you have less educating that you need to do for people, especially if you
How's
have
the security? How's the security side of Solana? Because like some, I think like some, especially OG ETH people would argue maybe all those clicks we have to do on MetaMask is for our own good. So we can double and triple check that the transaction we're approving is indeed a transaction we want. Right?
Off
Whereas
of
like if
bad
you make it,
UX, bad UX is now good security. I love that.
I
it's a
don't
I
think.
feature.
mean,
MetaMask is
I mean,
horrible.
honestly, like if you think about even like Web 2 or think about like any technology we use, I feel like in the history of technology, we've always traded convenience for security to some extent. Like the more convenient you want things to be, like the more I can just unlock my iPhone and like do all these things, like the more loosey goosey I get with it, and the less I think about actual security. Right. And I think it's the same with crypto. And I don't know, like, if there is a solution to that trade off or if that trade off will just always exist. But I feel like with crypto, it's scarier because once the money is sent, it's gone. There's no way to recover it. So it's almost like I would rather optimize for security when it comes to crypto rather than convenience, which is like not a solution for onboarding the masses whatsoever. But that's kind of just like the push and pull in my brain of like I love like the good UX, like how everything is consumer friendly, all the apps are consumer friendly in Solana, and it's easy to onboard people. But is that like the way that we want to be onboarding people? Like, or are we just putting them at higher risk of like losing their money or getting rugged or like not understanding how to have good security practices? I'm just like I'm not like taking a stance on this, by the way. I'm just posing a question.
But how many times are we actually reading those simulations? Like
I mean,
who's actually
there have definitely been times where like not that I'm reading the simulations, especially when it was just like a bunch of gibberish
gibberish?
that like I can't read anyway, but there have definitely been times when like all the multiple steps have like each time it makes me click something else, it creates friction in the process, and it's made me maybe think a little bit like, oh, should I double check that this is like the legit NFT project and this isn't like a scam project. Like, let me just go back and like double check that, or something. Like, there have definitely been times where that friction point has made me go back and like double and triple check something. And in some cases, it's like it was a legit contract and it just made me not mint it, which is like not great for the business. Like, they didn't make my money. But for me, I do feel that like that those added friction points keep me more safe.
I could see that. You know what that actually reminds me of, which I thought was kind of buffoonery, like on another level. So on Pump, because everyone had been using Pump for a while to create degen tokens, there was kind of like a cultural norm that when you launched a token, you would like burn the liquidity like tokens that were like representing that. So like the little lock symbol would show up on the deck screener, and like you would do these lockup periods. Like everyone was doing these like steps to basically prove that they weren't going to rug you with this token. And then when we came over to the base side and we started launching clankers, the liquidity was like, I mean, nothing was stopping the Clanker team. Nothing's still actually stopping them from literally pulling the liquidity on all your tokens. Nothing's
Yeah.
locked up, So I found it very interesting in that regard that, like, because Solana had been doing it for so long, these things that I expected that were normal at that stage were not making their way to, like, Ethereum, like lockup periods, like the whole Venice situation where, like, no one in the team locked up their tokens. And the
Uh,
token price dropped like the moment they got listed in Coinbase. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I agree with you that sometimes it is kind of nice, like being asked to approve an allowance spend amount. We do this now, like on Farcaster. Like whenever you use that crowdfunding app and you do $10 that you want to donate to someone, there's an extra click where it's like, hey, you're going to approve a $10 spend. And then the second one is the transaction to send it through. I don't know. Yeah. Is it nice? Sure, I guess.
Well, I guess the question then is that different on Solana? Because I think the question Diana was posing
Yeah.
was like, what is the security to the user when it comes to spending? I
Right.
might
yeah.
be
I just want to
over
clarify.
making the
Yeah.
point way too much, but is that the same on Solana or is it not?
So I think what you're discussing is really the security measures that's being reinforced by apps. So I would argue that's like same everywhere, right? I mean, you can effectively build like 2 clicks, um, like a 2FA type of confirmation on, like a Phantom wallet too, right? Just like MetaMask. But like what I was referring to really was more about like the chain security, right? So actually, I should say like I'm actually on the same page with you, not debating a point that Ethereum still has the most trusted assumption, right? Just because the length of its battle tested, right? Um, uh, what do you call it? Like longevity, right? Like how it's been around for 7 years versus like Solana have only been around for 5 years now. So, just the amount of a DDoS or other type of tax, right? It's proving that like Ethereum has the best security model. So, so actually, that's part of the reason we're looking at this modular play to put SVM on top of ETH. Part of this to get that security from Ethereum, and the other part is also to activate the idled asset that I mentioned, right? That's been parked on ETH that hasn't previously found a good way to spend on chain. Yeah, so it's to both activate the liquidity on ETH and to benefit from the ETH security.
Also, I want to make a point here of some of the notes he sent us, which I think we should talk about, which is where we're settling when we're using soon on
Mm.
base. It's happening on base.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's
I
all.
think bringing that transaction volume to base, I think is huge
Mhm.
in terms of like that UX that people have not just become familiar, but uh, have definitely that they want to use. Like you could see based on the amount of usage that Solana gets, that there's a lot of interest in what's being built there. To bring that activity to base is huge. And I think that based on what you just said too, is that you're bringing these two things together that are valuable to each of these chains, which is innovation, creativity, uh, daily usage to security, kind of like what the base layer of Ethereum represents to Solana as well. Which I think that's a really strong marriage of two very unique but also very valuable products and experiences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like we always wanted to look at the like the value accrue, right? At the end of the day, right? When we build this the Zoom base, it's going to use ETH as the gas token, right? So it's still value accrue to Ethereum, um, and then settling onto Base. So eventually, obviously, Base is a L2 that gets the security guarantee from Ethereum. So yeah, through that, like we're really kind of bringing this new, kind of just like the opposite of thinking, right? Like that, like the only way to scale Ethereum is by using EVM. In this case, like we're using an alt VM to bring high performance use cases to EVM. But also, I think the opposite could happen too, right? Like we also want to see these new, like the DAOs, right? Like I want to see more DAOs happening on to like the Solana ecosystem too, or social fi, right? Like Farcaster type of experiment. Like there's no Farcaster equivalent currently that I know in Solana, um, and there's really no good reason for that. So yeah, all these crossover ecosystem development opportunities is what's like the real alpha. I think we see, the builder culture kind of determined these product gaps. So how do we bring these like, DePIN apps into Base, and then how do we get like the social apps into Solana, right? That's where the real opportunities come from.
Are there any DAOs in Solana?
Grandma, how you know this? You just
There
interviewed
Oh,
are.
Prophet. Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
I'm just curious because I don't know of
You want to
any. I'm just
learn?
curious. Yeah, we're just trying to learn.
Educate us, Gramajo. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, you want to
Is there
fight?
a nouns DAO on Solana? Is that what's happening?
No, no nouns
Oh,
now. Although I thought about that for a hot second, which is creating like a futarchy version of nouns and it being like its own block. Because why not?
What does that mean, being its own block? See, now you're talking tech specs. Educate me, who I am not versed in what Solana
So
have
means.
you heard of the blockchain, Humpty?
Oh
No,
my.
what?
no,
Stop it. Stop
no. It's
it.
more. This is more like voting block.
Yeah,
So like
more
how
like
how
voting
we
block,
have like
Diana. Jesus.
yeah. This is more like a voting block. So it would be like like Shark DAO, but like on Solana essentially, and we would do all of our voting of all the props in a futarchy way, and then we would just vote on the Ethereum side. A
You
little
mean the
manual, but
Sandcastle DAO?
yeah, or like Nounslow or anything like that, So like,
No, just use your Sandcastle head. Just like Shark DAO was the shark head.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do a
Sandcastle DAO.
Sandcastle DAO for
Done.
sure.
And I kind of like it because the vibes of Sandcastles, it's like, this has to do with governance, but fun. Castles and sand. I don't know.
Castle building in the sand.
That's
It's all
my
ephemeral.
parents' side of me is thinking. My
No, no,
grandson.
you're spot on. I thought about that pretty hard because there's also like a VC firm out here that's like on Sandcastle Road, if I'm not mistaken, is like the name of the street in Silicon Valley. So like that's where I had the same thought that you did too. But yes, there are
You're
DAOs
also a dad, though.
in Solana, Tree Girl.
Good to know. Wait, I'm
Not
actually
many.
curious for you, Gramajo, because did you onboard to crypto through EVM, right? And then you like just started exploring Solana on your own? No, through Solana?
Through Bitcoin.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
Wait,
damn. Okay.
when you say that though, were you using the Bitcoin network or you were just holding Bitcoin? There's a very big difference.
No, no, no. I was using it, dude.
Wow.
I've been
What
I've
were
been
you
around.
doing on it?
I mean,
Rebooting
honestly,
it?
like it's painful to think about, but like, and that's the other funny thing that I don't think people realize is like early 2012 to 2016 Bitcoin, it was all about like using your actual Bitcoin. So there were so many things I bought paying for
Yeah.
Bitcoin, and
Anything legal?
if I really start thinking about how much money I wasted, like now to how much Bitcoin is worth, like I feel like I will probably get angry again and like
See,
shut
that's what you
down.
spend ETH. It always stays the same. It's like a stable
That's
coin.
exactly it. Stablecoin, baby.
Save
Yeah.
your
No.
Bitcoin, spend your ETH.
Yeah. So no, I got started with Bitcoin. So that's why I actually like, like people are like, oh, like create a multi sig or do all this. I'm like, dude, like this is Bitcoin like table stakes at this point. Like that's like the shit that like they've been telling us for a long time. And like people complain about wallets, and I'm like, dude, no one's used mycelium back in like 2014. Like that, nobody even knows what that even means,
I
except for
I use
people that.
mycelium. Yeah.
Do you ever use mycelium for Bitcoin?
I did, but just to hold
Yeah, right.
Bitcoin.
Like
I never paid with anything because it was all like the UX, everything. The UX, the UI was horrible.
everything.
Hmm.
I went to a
I might still
coffee
have it on
shop.
an old phone.
I went to a coffee shop and I bought a coffee and they had me wait off to the side for like 15 minutes while it settled.
Wow.
Wow.
So
The
yes,
tagline is like, "It'll be ready when your coffee's cold."
yeah,
Yeah, right?
yeah.
Okay, here's the
So
question because we like to get spicy. Are you spending your soul then? Bitcoin
surprisingly,
versus ETH?
I'm actually I have a certain thesis, and no, I'm not spending my soul. I'm actually spending my ETH.
You see what I mean? That's
What's your
Yeah.
spicy.
thesis? Go on.
Uh, my thesis is that the upside of Solana, where it is right now, or where it was. So I was buying it during the bear when it was like $30. I was buying a lot of it
Holy shit.
because I felt like 2019 to like 2022, I put in like a good chunk of money into Ethereum, and I felt very underexposed in Solana. So when the bear happened, or I still think we're in it. I bought a lot more. Like I bought like six figures worth of like Solana constantly. Um, and I'm not spending
Damn.
my as much. Yeah, because I think it has a higher upside personally. And Ethereum's
So,
proven it right. Like
are
it's a
you
stable.
excited then that you can basically settle in ETH when Soon brings all these cool Solana experiences to base? Because then you don't have to spend your soul; you just spend your
Yeah,
ETH.
I actually didn't know that was that you were gonna settle in ETH, and I have like some thoughts around that. But like, yes, that's nice. I do like that.
Would you
Um,
like to see some of these tokens from Solana making their way through Soon to base? Because I think that'd be fun.
I mean, I don't see why not. Like, why not? You know, I
I
think I'm more excited for the tools than like the tokens. Like,
Mm.
I'm not like heavily in the pump trenches. Like, I'm not gonna pretend that I am. Like, I thought I was good at it, and then I got wrecked like everyone else like a couple months ago. So I think I learned my lesson there. It's good for like LPing, but it's also a dangerous game. But yeah, like the tooling is what I'm excited for. Like, especially if it's like pretty easy. Like, if it's like what's the name of that tool? Flutter, like where you build iOS apps. It's like the
mm,
framework that lets you like build and deploy to iOS and Android like relatively easily. If it's like that, then it'd be really cool to see like MetaDAO like come to Solana or Ethereum like relatively quickly.
I think there's something to be said about that. And John, I want to hear your thoughts, on what Gramajo just said too. But I think it's really interesting to think about that bridge to Web 2 in a way that developers can build something with familiarity, right? You talked about solidity earlier, Gramajo, versus like Rust. I think there's more familiarity on one over the other, especially with traditional developers, not those who are full-time Web3 developers, where you can now build something in a language that's familiar to you, launch it, have it be on chain, but also usable and familiar to everyone else through these platforms like iOS. John, I wonder if you had thoughts about that and you want to expand on it.
yeah. So I think the main thing for the developers is, they may find like Solidity, be kind of like the most familiar language or most commonly used language, and easy to pick up. Um, but like this is like what every Solana builder will ever tell you, right? Like when they started with learning Rust is like chewing glass, right? So the reward is so high that they would kind of go through that process, right? Like you know, go through the wall to like build on Solana because that's where the users are. So yeah, I wouldn't take sort of the language programming language gap as like the main roadblock for SVM adoption. Um, the real like um, kind of the carrot that's dangling in front of this developers is like you just develop once, right? Sure, it takes time to um, to actually develop on Rust. But once you develop, you can now have distribution channel to every ecosystem, right? Not only just Solana, but using Stack, you can get access to the retail distribution on Coinbase, on Binance, right? I think that's where it just clicks for these developers to realize like they can get all the liquidities um, and deploy onto each network with only one time development cost. Um, yeah, so I think the one other thing that we've been really thinking about is like, we not only want to be just an infra provider, but um, as this like app and infra kind of the division of the two are the line is being blurred. Like we also build some first party dApps to really prove out the use case of a SVM chain, right? So I think the main um, most obvious use case is DeFi still, right? For high performance chains, just the trading experience is better. So we built this like copy trading platform that like right now follows smart money on Drift, right? That's the main perp dex on Solana. And then it will be, right now it's on Solana, but it will be moved over to other, like Soonbase, right? Other Soon chains. The vision here or the kind of thesis here is to, how do we onboard the Web2 traders, right? Traditional finance people into Web3 is through these really easy one-click deployment type of copy trading platforms. And as we see all these RWA are coming on chain, right? U.S. stocks now tradable on chain. Um, the really experience that these people that have been trading traditional stocks is going to be expecting is it's very much Web2 like. So the infra is really like a means to the end, right? We want to, at the end of the day, like, um, yeah, basically have a real PMF when it comes to how do we bring these new people, new Wall Street traders on chain, right? It's by bringing them this very similar to a Web2 experience, right, onto um, directly onto the Solana and other SVM chains. Yeah. So that's our thesis that we're continue to build products to um, enable that kind of movement.
Awesome.
So do you have like a bounty, or how do you plan to entice like those early developers
Yeah.
to come build?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have been kind of spending a lot of time in emerging markets. Like I mentioned, right? Like before you joined, we talked about the differences between like US and kind of international markets. We just see a lot more kind of like less tribalism happening in these markets where like the ETH KL people are like hanging out with the super team Malaysia people like all in one place. That would never happen in any other region, um, like in the West. So like we wanted to double down on like India, Southeast Asia, Turkey, UAE. These are all the regions that we are super bullish on. So we spent a lot of time at the beginning stage to do these like hacker houses, bounties, like you mentioned in those regions, and we incubated about 40 teams that are soon native. But I think as we continue to grow, like we're going to, um, yeah, basically just do less like in-person hacker houses, but more like virtual hackathons to, yeah, continue to incentivize developers. Yeah.
Hey, let me know if you're trying to incentivize creators.
Oh,
Creator House coming
absolutely.
to another city near you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, we want to see, yeah, next time when you come over to New York, definitely wanted to be part of that. And yeah, on
Happening
board.
sooner than you think. I can't say
Yeah,
when
exactly.
because
I'm
then the
just making
pressure's going to be
questions.
on, but we are coming back to New York.
Sooner. I see what you did there.
Hey, I see what you did there. I didn't do that on purpose. You're the
Yeah,
winner.
boomer.
He's the smart one, enigmatic value.
Uh,
Yeah.
Diana is the smart one for sure.
no, 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 no. I am curious. You said something, Joanna, about like the distinction between the West and those other regions that you guys are more bullish on. I
Hmm.
guess that would have been a better question to start with when we were kind of just talking about Solana versus ETH culture is like how it's kind of like it's hard to generalize so broadly, but I do think that there's like some regional distinctions as well. And I'm curious like your take on the like overall vibe climate of the West versus the East or Europe or like other parts of the world that you've had more exposure to.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where because the new developers in these emerging markets, like it's still a nascent industry, right? Like people are trying new techs. Um, they're much more willing to, hop around different ecosystem to check out different things. So I think, like to your point earlier, in the West, everyone gets on board. Like, it's either like you come through the DeFi summer or the NFT summer, right? Like, it's very difficult to convince those folks that like, yeah, sure, now you can try out like the new ecosystem that has like an application that you haven't heard of, right?
Mhm.
Because they are so used to the existing, the gravity of like Ethereum, right? And I think that's where like, you know DeFi is most mature currently happening on ETH, right, in Ethereum. That's where the opportunity still exists, right, to improve that, um, because as I mentioned, right, like Ethereum itself is really bottlenecked by the throughput limit, by the latency, right, 12-second latency, about like 3K TPS. So, you can, that's why you see like all these sort of alt VM models coming out, right, with Hyperliquid, with yeah, Move language, like happening on Apto and Sui. So I think, yeah, in terms of like geography, right, like there's a lot more willingness to try out these new high performance chains because that is the future, right? Maybe it's not super clear like what is the end game yet. Is it Solana? Is it Move? Is it Fuel? Is it like parallel EVM? But one thing is clear, that people are willing to move in that direction to experiment in these new high performance chains. So I think that's why, like, coming back to the mission, right? It's like, how do we actually scale Ethereum? How do we actually bring users to Ethereum? Is not to hold on to the old playbook, right? And just simply, have 200 EVM L2s out there that are undifferentiated, but to actually like, seek out this opportunity to embed the newest tech, right, the newest innovation into Ethereum.
When you say West, are you speaking mostly about like the US or are you lumping like Europe in there
Yeah,
too?
sorry. I guess West, I would lump um, Europe and US, but not
Okay,
Eastern Europe, like Turkey, UAE, right? I could
gotcha.
include those into the emerging markets. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Because I was gonna ask if you think, like, if you were just talking about the US, like, if you think a lot of that is due to just regulations being more
Mhm.
difficult in the US and that contributing to people's like lack of open-mindedness or just unwillingness to try new things because they're scared that they're gonna get in trouble or whatever.
Yeah.
But like if we're also lumping, like Western Europe in there, because I know there are some countries in Western Europe that are actually like relatively crypto friendly in terms of their laws and regulations. What do you think contributes to like the mindset of like just this more of a willingness to try new ecosystems and new apps like in emerging markets versus in the West?
Yeah, definitely think the compliance is one of them, but um, yeah, I think it's still back to just the media is also like the sentiment, the overall sentiment in the West is still very like it's not just the government, but like also just the Web 2 like normies, right, are talking crypto in a very derogatory way, right? Saying these are scammers, right? And yeah, sure, there are scammers. There certainly are scammers in this space, and that's been a common issue that we all want to tackle. But I think yeah, like crypto is being displayed in Western media for one way or another. I can't really pinpoint one specific reason in a very negative light.
Hmm.
So the actual like I think the compliance is only like one reason, right? The regulatory environment, because that is changing obviously in the US and in the Western Europe as well. Um, and then I think also like people who truly wants to experiment will always find ways, right, to get VPN, to get like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just there's no way of stopping people. But the open mindedness really deeply rooted in this like cultural bias, right? Like I still talk to my Wall Street friends. Um, Majority of them are still very much questioning like why this is even this industry should even exist, right? So I think that
Mm.
needs a lot more education, yeah, than just the chain politics that we're talking about.
Yeah. I feel like it probably also has to do a lot on just like the more developed nations having a longer history of being able to rely on their government and rely on, these like systems that have been built up
Mhm.
over the years, whereas emerging markets, especially like ones with kind of volatile governments where they
Yeah,
just like don't have this like historical mindset of like we can trust our national currency
that's a great
to
question.
like,
There's a great
it continue to exist. And so
yeah,
for
yeah,
them, it's like they're like, we just need to like save ourselves and we're willing to try whatever to do that. Like
right.
whereas in the West, it's like we have this ingrained mindset of like we should trust our government and our systems that we
Yeah,
built up
exactly.
because we can count on it.
That's a
Yeah.
great, really good point. I think that's why you see like stable coins being mostly used in like Africa, right? In like South
Right.
America, because they actually don't have the existing solution to replace it.
Right.
People
Yeah.
might as well just try this new technology that is a lot better than at least the current solution, the hyperinflated currency. Yeah, so like maybe the trustworthiness of the banking system in the West is the biggest issue. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. And I think that just makes it hard for people to even understand the point of DeFi. Like,
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
the purpose of that? Like, we don't need it, right? Whereas, like, in emerging markets, it's like, no, they need it. Like, there is a very practical,
dire need.
tangible need for stable coins that everyone that lives there can easily understand.
100%, 100%. That's why I think now we're seeing like the PMF towards the sort of the boring, unsexy part of crypto, right? Like institutional adoption. That's what's really exciting with the
Yeah.
yeah the RWA trend, right? Tokenization and just more like institutional money are adopting, right? Um, Even the government is having a Bitcoin reserve, right? All these um, positive news. It's shaping the industry in a much better direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think we
I
ended
just,
on a really positive line. So I don't know how
yeah.
we did it, but
Yeah.
We always get there.
we had a lot of
It
debate.
seems like we don't know what we're
But
doing, but we know what
we
we're
ended on
doing.
agreement.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing because you talked about like this multi-chain thesis, and that's definitely something that I've always agreed with. I mean, I've been in this space since 2016, so not as long as some of you. It sounds like Gramajo and you predate that. But I remember then the argument was that there was going to be a multi-chain future where there's going to be differentiation across all of these blockchains, and I feel like for the last few years, maybe like a year or two, it almost seemed that through the proliferation of L2s and L3s, that the solution was all upstream of Ethereum. Whereas, like, I still do think that there's a lot of value in the different ecosystems and cultures, to borrow the word that we've been using a lot here, of other chains, right? You talked about Aptos, you talked about Cosmos. We were always obviously talking about Solana. I feel like each of these chains is developing along a shared culture, and I find it interesting that where before I used to think that the way that the multi-chain future propagated was through EVM, it's interesting to now see those other chains creating compatible virtual machines to Ethereum or the SVM that soon is bringing to Base, right? And that you've already brought to BNB chain and that you've brought to Ethereum mainnet. That's so interesting to me because I didn't think of that culture coming inwards to find a home on a blockchain that has shown to have been valuable not just in the amount of like development that's happened here, but also some of its own cultural influence to other chains. And that to me is really exciting because I again, I'm a proponent of a multi-chain future. I just didn't think that culture was going to be coming inwards. I always thought about going outwards, but that's my personal bias, right? That's showing there. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I've been on Ethereum most of my life or EVM chain, so why shouldn't it be Ethereum going outward? This is really cool. This is really exciting. And well, whenever soon is live and ready to go and building on base and bringing these, different platforms to our communities, I'll be one of the first to try it, and maybe then I'll start using these Solana apps that Gramajo is such a pro at using already.
Yeah, 100%. I really like the thinking change there, right? Like, the end of the day, it's less about these silos, our community versus yours, right? It's really like how do we all, like as Diana mentioned, right? How do we actually grow out of our echo chamber and actually, yeah, basically educate the folks outside of this room, um, and get more users that way. Yeah, so whatever can get that to happen. So maybe it's the creator community that you're running, right, Compty, or could be the DP, you know, moonwalk people that we can get somebody else to build similar product on base, right? You know, could be various approaches to this, but I think the end goal is all very real. It's that like infra side, at least we're finally at the stage that we can onboard WebTube users.
Do you think it's infra that's gonna solve the onboarding problem and not apps?
No, that's why I am doing both. We're trying to,
Yeah.
really prove out that use case for a chain, right? We don't want to be the chain that's just kind of, yeah, basically playing the same playbook as always, going after the same developers, kind of a PvP play. Getting these grand farmers to come on board. That's really unsustainable. Yeah, we wanted to blur that line between the app and the chain. Um, yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about like finding the killer use case and apps.
Yeah. I do think that like infra actually can contribute to good UX and onboarding way more than people think or people talk about. Like I think most people associate onboarding and good UX and things like that to like the app layer.
Mm,
But I actually think like a lot of what infra can do with like interoperability, bridging all of these different ecosystems together, that's going to make onboarding so much easier for the masses and also like solve a lot of UX problems too with like, you know, I think like for example, what Privy is doing with like trying to make creating a wallet and like onboarding onto these crypto apps easier. I think that's great, but I think the result of that is like now I have 52 different wallets from all of these apps that I wanted to try once that I have no idea like what they are, where they are, how, I probably have like a tiny bit of like gas money in each wallet. I think that there, and I know people are working on solutions to like have all of that in one place. And I think even Privy is working on a solution for users to keep all of their wallets in one place. Stuff like that. That's all like what I associate infra level stuff. But I think that can contribute to like onboarding and good UX. Like so much more than, like another consumer app being built that will onboard 20 people.
yeah, yeah, that's that's the vision too. Like instead of having just like a stack, like being a tech provider, um, I hate to like bring my old employer into this, but like the OP playbook is very much like
Hmm.
the tech provider, right? To allow everybody to just spin at their own chains, and then like assuming that they will just like contribute back to the the overall ecosystem retroactively. Like we're taking a different approach where we are actively figuring out like how do we contribute to each ecosystem, bring like 40 applications to base, right, to Binance, to ETH, and then just like actually figuring out the how to make this a unifying experience as opposed to a fragmented experience. To your point, yeah, that's always been the driving force, from day one.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think it's a great mission. And I think that's the way that's the right track to solving onboarding.
We also
Yeah.
benefit from it too, like as consumers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I know what triggered me going down like the rabbit hole of like Solana was DeFi as well. Um, and so like as a Solana user now, there's like great DeFi in Solana, like Drift Protocol, and a couple other ones. And now you have more choices. You know, if you're like, I don't want to use Drift, I want to use Moonwell or something, like you can go the other way, you know? Like you like it makes it so any DeFi provider has to compete like based on like what they're providing and not necessarily like the moat. Like my blockchain is protecting me from those other guys coming here, you know? It's like you can go back and forth pretty easily. Um it's also cool too because I think for the base ecosystem, like I know Solana's done a really great job at having like DPIN or like decentralized infrastructure projects, like actual physical infrastructure projects, and now we can get access to that. Like we can get
Mhm.
Helium Mobile essentially, like brought to base if we wanted to.
Yeah, yeah. I think someone mentioned. Oh, it was Humpty. You mentioned the whole iOS um, analogy, right? So like the way I think of soon is like we're the open sourcing iOS, right? So like you no longer need to buy the expensive Apple phone to get access to the iOS, the operating system itself, and all the popular apps on your iPhone, right? You can have a jammed up like Android phone, whatever, like not even smartphone, and still get access to these apps, right? So that's the philosophy that just it would never happen in Web 2. Apple would never allow that. But in Web 3, it's all decentralized and permissionless. So this is what we need to do. We need to bring access to um, every application to every user in a yeah, truly decentralized way.
It's also like
That's a sound clip right there. We're gonna use
yeah,
that for the shorts.
it also goes to like what's happening on base and Farcaster is that they're trying to make it so you build a web app and it works as a mini app within Farcaster. So you build it once and you could ship it in multiple places, like for distribution. So like it's the exact same mantra that's already happening on base. Is like build a Solana app once and you can ship it, you know, to base or another EVM compatible thing. So I think it'll go well.
But we're reaching the bottom of the hour, and I know some of us have a cutoff point here. So I just want to make sure that we thank Joanna for your time. This has been really fun.
Yes.
You've brought
Thank you,
so much
Joanna.
like brain power and lots of really good stimulating conversation. I've learned a lot. Hopefully everybody
Yeah.
who's been listening has learned a lot too. We had the most people tune into this live stream that we've ever had, so we're
Holy
gonna say
shit,
thanks to
really?
yeah, there's almost 900 people tuned in to hear this conversation on X.
Let's
So
go.
really good chat. Thank you for that. And then you have three podcasters here, so I'm sure you'll be hearing from Joanna again across different mediums. So that'd be really. I'm really interested to kind of hear the voice, your voice across all of these different channels, because I think each person here presents information in a unique way, and I think the questions that Gramajo and Diana would ask would be differentiated. Again, as we've
Yeah.
been talking about today, enough where the conversation would be rich across all of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to continue to learn more.
I'm trying to get Jesse to join, Jesse from Base to join the next podcast. So stay tuned.
That'd be an epic
Cool.
one.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. I learned a
Thank you,
lot.
Joanna.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. I learned a lot from you too. This
Thank
is
you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll talk to each other soon.
Great. Thank you,
Talk to you
everybody.
guys soon. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.